Hey everyone, today we're going to be working on Unit 3 LT6 notes, factoring without a B term. So when there's no B term, you're going to see something like this. X squared minus 9. If you remember right, our A always goes with our squared number. Our B always just goes with our X. And then our C goes with our constant, or something that doesn't have a letter. So here you'll notice this one does not have just that X term. So you're going to place a 0 in the bottom of the X, and this is also called the difference of squares. So let's look at this first one. I have x squared minus 9. So my A is going to be 1 because there's no number in front of that x squared. My B, because there's no x, is going to be a 0. And then my C is that negative 9. So I'm going to write that x in there. Okay, and remember, to find our top, we multiply our C times our A. So negative 9 times 1 is negative 9. And then we're going to stick our B term right there. Okay, and now you have to find all your factors of 9. So I know that 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. Well, because we have the negative right here in that negative 9, that means that one of our numbers has to be negative. So I'm looking at these. In order to make a 0, the number is going to be the same on both sides. One of them is just going to be positive and one of them is going to be negative. So the only one that would really work is that 3. So I'm going to have a negative 3 plus 3. So a negative 3 plus 3, that's going to equal 0. So I'm going to stick this negative 3 here and this positive 3 here. And now we're going to go and factor it just like we usually do. So I'm going to start with x squared. And instead of that nothing there for that B term, I'm going to add minus 3x plus 3x, and then end with that negative 9. And now I'm going to put parentheses around those ones. X squared and 3x, they both have an x in common, so I'm going to take an x out of both of those. And 3x and 9 both have a 3 in common, so I'm going to take a 3 out of both of those. Put my x out front. X squared divided by x, I'm just left with x, minus 3x divided by x, I'm just left with a 3, plus, I put my 3 on the outside, start a new set of parentheses, 3x divided by 3, I'm just left with my x, and negative 9 divided by 3, I'm left with a negative 3. So I'm going to double check. Inside's x minus 3, that looks good. So I'm going to have x minus 3 for my first set, and then I use what's on the outside for my second one, x plus 3. I'm going to look up. I did not factor anything out first. I did not take the greatest common factor out, so I don't have to put anything in front. So this is just going to be your final answer. Okay, x squared minus 49. Again, we're going to start with our A, our B, and our C term. So my A equals 1. I don't have an x, so when I don't have an x, my B equals 0, and my C equals negative 49. I'm going to go ahead and factor it like I was before. So my A times my C, negative 49 times 1, that's going to give me negative 49. And my B term is a 0. So I'm finding all my factors of 49. So I know that 1 and 49 and 7 and 7 go into 49. Okay, so when I look at those, remember, if it's a 0, you're going to have the same number. It's just going to be one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So when I look at those, I know that this 7 and 7 has to be it, and one of them is going to be negative. So I'm going to stick my negative 7 here and my positive 7 there. And now I'm going to factor it like I did before. So I'm going to start with x squared minus 7x plus 7x minus 49. I'm going to chunk these two and those two. X squared and 7x both have an x in them. And 7 and 49 both have a 7 in them. Put my x out front. X divided by x is x. And 7x divided by x, whoops. And 7x divided by x is just your 7. Plus my 7 out front. 7x divided by 7 is just my x. And then negative 49 divided by 7 is negative 7. Check to make sure the insides match. Those look good. So x minus 7. And then my outsides. X plus 7. And that's going to be my final answer. Okay, when I look at this one, I have 2x squared minus 8. Well, I see that I can take a greatest common factor out of here. I see that they're both even numbers, and I can take a 2 out of both of them. So I'm going to take my 2 out here and a 2 out of here. My 2 comes out front. 2 divided by 2 leaves me with just an x squared, and 8 divided by 2 is minus 4. So now we're going to use those, and we're going to find our A, our B, and our C. So my A equals 1. My B, because I don't have a B value, is 0. And my C is negative 4. Now I can set up my X. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. My B is going to be a 0. Well, my factors of 4 are 1 and 4, and 2 and 2. We'll go with what we know. 2 times 2 is 4. One of them is going to be negative, and one of them is going to be positive. So now I'm going to rewrite. Remember, when we take that greatest common factor out, we're going to rewrite just this piece right here, and we're going to replace that B with this right there. So I'm going to start with my x squared, and then say minus 2x plus 2x minus 4. Chunk those two and these two. And take an x out of both of those and a 2 out of both of those. X squared divided by x. My x goes on the outside. I'm left with an x minus 2 on the inside plus 2 and x minus 2 on the inside. Check and make sure. X minus 2, x minus 2. That looks good. So my first one, oops, is going to be an x minus 2. And my second one is what's on the outside. I have an x and a plus 2. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, now I'm going to check. This one, I took that little sister out of at the beginning. Remember how we had this one that we took that 2 out? So we're going to take that 2, and just like we did in the last lesson, we're going to bring it all the way down, and we're just going to stick it in the front right there. So that 2 goes in the front. Okay, 3x squared minus 3. Again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our greatest common factor out. So my greatest common factor of 3 and 3 is a 3. So I'm going to divide this by a 3 and divide this by a 3. So my 3 comes on the outside, and I'm left with x squared minus 1 on the inside. Now I'm going to label my terms. My A equals 1. My B is not there, so that's going to be a 0. And my C is that negative 1. Set up my x. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Put a 0 here. Okay. Again, the only factors of 1 are 1 and 1, right? So one of them is going to be, and actually I'm going to do this one a little bit different. I'm going to flip it around just so we have practice doing this one. So I'm going to put my positive on this side and my negative on this side. Normally, I always like to put my negative number on the left side because we don't have to take the extra step when you do that. They can go in any order. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to show you how to do it this way just as a refresher. Okay, so I'm going to start with my original, not my original, my new set right there. Okay, so I'm going to start with x squared plus 1x minus 1x minus 1. And then put those in parentheses, put these in parentheses. Now remember, when you have this negative that's right here, you have to divide by a negative number. So this one, I know I'm going to divide this by a negative something, and I have to divide that by a negative something because we had that negative right there. These two, x squared and x, both have an x in common. And negative 1x and negative 1, they both have a negative 1 in common. And x goes on the outside. X squared divided by x is just x. And 1x divided by x is a positive 1. Now I'm going to take that negative 1, instead of saying plus 1, I'm going to say minus 1. Negative 1 divided by 1, I'm just left with a positive x. And then a negative divided by a negative, again, I'm left with a positive number. So let's check, do our insides match? X plus 1, sure do. So I'm going to start with x plus 1. And now I'm going to see about my outsides, x minus 1. I have an x minus 1, sure do. Okay, now I'm going to look. Do I have any little sisters that I brought to the mall with me? Yep. Whoops, that's not a highlighter. There's my little sister right there. So that little sister has got to come home with me. So I'm going to bring her down and add her out front. I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your mind a little bit. You ready for this? Notice that I have, let me find a good highlighter color. I have a positive one right here, and I have a negative one right here. Okay? Notice that in the inside right here, I have x plus 1 and x minus 1. Let's move back to number 3. I have a, let's see here, what color do I want? Negative 2, and I have a positive 2. And in my parentheses, I have x minus 2 and x plus 2. You just have to remember that little sister. If you have that little sister out front, you got to add that in the end. That only works if your x value, your x squared, is a 1. If your x squared is not a 1, that will not work that way, but it will work that way if you have an x squared at the beginning, just a 1x squared. But just a little hint for you. Don't use it for everyone. You got to make sure that it works. That your x squared is a 1 in front of it, but if it is, then you can use that little kind of shortcut. Okay, let's move on to number 5. I have x squared minus 4x minus 21. I'm looking at my coefficients, or my numbers in front. I have a 1 in front of my x squared, a negative 4 in front of my x, and then a negative 21. The only thing that will go into all 3 of those would be 1, so I can't take a number out of there. When I look at the letter, only 2 of the 3 have a letter on them, so I can't take anything out of them. So now I just need to find my A, my B, and my C. So my A equals 1, my B equals negative 4, and my C equals negative 21. I'm going to set up my x. Negative 21 times 1 is negative 21. And I have a negative 4 here. Find my factors of 21. I know it's 1 and 21. Whoops, that's a 12. 1 and 21, and 3 and 7. Okay? Because this 4 is a negative number, that means my bigger number is going to have to be the negative one. So one of those is going to be negative. So 1 minus 21. If I have 1 minus 21, that's going to give me a negative 20. 3 minus 7, that will give me a negative 4. So I'm going to use that one right there. So 3 and negative 7. So I'm going to rewrite x squared plus 3x minus 7x minus 21. Chunk those two together. Okay, when I'm looking at this, I notice right away that I have this negative in the middle. So anytime you have that negative in the middle, remember you have to divide by a negative. Okay, so let's start over here. X squared and 3x and x. And an x can be taken out, and negative 7 and negative 21. I can take a negative 7 out of both of those. So that's my negative that goes with my 7. X comes out front. X plus 3 goes on the inside. Minus 7, and then you're left with x plus 3 on the inside. When I'm looking, I have x plus 3, x plus 3. That looks good. So I'm going to say x plus 3. And then look at my outsides, and I have x minus 7. Oops. Okay, and then I'm going to look. Did I take a greatest common factor, or GCF, out at the beginning? Nope. So this one is going to be just like that. And if you look, this follows suit with what I was saying before. So I had a 3 and a negative 7, and I ended up with x plus 3 and x minus 7. So you could have taken the shortcut with that one. Okay, number 6, 3x squared plus 2x minus 5. When I look at all those numbers, there's no number that will go into all of those but 1. And all 3 of them do not have the x in it, so I can't take an x out of it. So I'm just going to do my A, my B, and my C. So A equals 3, B equals 2, C equals negative 5. My A times my C, negative 15. 2 on the bottom. And find my factors of 15. I know 1 and 15, 3 and 5, and that is it. Okay, because this down here is positive, that means that my smaller number is going to be the negative. So I want my smaller one to be the negative number. So it's either going to be this one or this one. So negative 1 plus 15 gives me a 14, so that's not going to work. Negative 3 plus 5 will give me a positive 2. So I'm going to put my negative 3 here and my 5 here. And now I'm going to rewrite 3x squared minus 3x plus 5x minus 5. Put those in parentheses. Divide by 3x. 3x. I'm going to divide this side by 5 and that by 5. 3x comes on the outside. I'm left with x minus 1. And then plus 5 goes on the outside. And I'm left with x minus 1. So I'm going to look at both of them. I have x minus 1, x minus 1. That looks fantastic. And then I have my 3x here, my plus 5 there. So I'm going to say 3x plus 5. Before I'm done, I'm going to look back up. Did I take a little sister with me? Nope. So this is just going to be your answer. Okay, number 7. Let's try to do this one with our shortcut that we know, okay? Because our A value is a 1, and as long as your A value is a 1, you can do this. So my A equals 1, my B equals negative 7, and my C equals negative 18. I'm going to set up my X. I have negative 18 here, negative 7 there, and a 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. And that is it. Because this 7 is a negative, that means that my bigger number has to be the negative one. So all of these can be negative. Okay, so 1 minus 18 2 minus 9 or 3 minus 6? Well, this one right here, 2 minus 9 is the one that works. So I'm going to put a 2 here. My negative 9 here. Okay, I could rewrite this out, or I could just say x plus 2 and x minus 9. And that will be your final answer. That's how you're going to factor those ones. Okay, let's look at the last one. I have 4x squared plus 21x plus 5. My a equals, okay, so we can't do the trick with this one because my a is a 4. It only works if your a is a 1. B equals 21 and c equals 5. I'm going to factor that out. 5 times 4 is 20. And this is 21. 20, I know 1 and 20. 2 and 10, 4 and 5, and that's it. Well, the only ones that add up to 21 would be 1 and 20. So I'm going to put my 1 here and my 20 here. I'm going to rewrite. Four x squared plus 1x plus 20x plus 5. Put in parentheses here and here. 4x and 1x both have an x in it, and 20 and 5 both have 5 in it. So I have x and then a 4x plus 1 plus 5, and then I have 4x plus 1. Looking on the insides, 4x plus 1, 4x plus 1. So that looks good. My first set, 4x plus 1. And my second set is going to be what's on the outside, x plus 5. And there you have it. That will be the end of today's notes. Please reach out if you have questions. Join our Google Meets and we will answer any questions you might have.